Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. Welcome to my new Comics Cavalcade episode. This is where I'm going to be talking about a bunch of newer DC comics that I have read within the last, I want to say, a couple months. I'm not caught up with all these titles. I actually just received, at the time of this recording, a new shipment of a couple weeks worth of comics, but I decided to go ahead and record this since I am alone in the house and I have some time to do so. But before I get to that, I wanted to return to my iTunes reviews to spotlight the latest one that I have. And this is a 5-star review from listener CyberRadC. Cyber RADC. So I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. But CyberRad, I'll just say, says, great comic podcast. The host does an excellent job covering comics and has a solid knowledge of DC Comics history. What I enjoy most is learning something new about DC Comics, listening to the show. Well, thank you, CyberRad for that review. I really appreciate that. And it's apropos because I am going to be talking this episode about a bunch of new DC comics. And those comics are The Dreaming, House of Whispers, two titles from the Sandman universe line or subline, or I'm not sure, imprint maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what they call it, but this from the Sandman universe line of comics. Justice League Dark and Justice League Odyssey, which spun out of the Justice League No Justice miniseries some months ago. Catwoman, Heroes in Crisis, Wonder Woman, The Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, that 12-issue miniseries, Detective Comics, as we speed straight along to issue 1000, and finally Freedom Fighters, another 12-issue miniseries. So I'll be talking about those.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
Guys, keep it down. I'm trying to talk here.
My name is George Hanna. I was one of the hosts of the George and Tony Entertainment Show, a podcast you probably never heard of. I have a new project scheduled to start this spring, and I hope you'll give it a listen. More importantly, though, I, along with my co-hosts, will be participating in Live Stream for the Cure this year. We hope you'll help fight cancer by listening to this podcasting telethon hosted by the Epic Film Guys, May 17th through the 19th, 2019, and contributing to the cause. For more information, check out livestreamforthecure.com. This promo is under construction, so keep your ears open for updates on my new project. And oh yeah, cancer!
So to start off with, I'll talk about the Vertigo titles, as I said, the Sandman Universe titles, The Dreaming and House of Whispers. Let's start with The Dreaming. So this was, I've read, at this point, I've read up through issue 5, so I have 1 through 5. I just want to start off by saying I really, really enjoyed the first volume of The Dreaming, almost as much as Neil Gaiman's Sandman series. So that spin-off series, the first volume of The Dreaming, I thought was pretty spectacular. And I was pretty sad to see it get canceled when it did. I think maybe it got to issue 60, I want to say. So it didn't quite get to the issue 75 that Sandman did, but I really liked it. I liked exploring how it explored the denizens of the Dreaming that we did not get as much in the Sandman series. So when they announced that this was coming back as part of the Sandman Universe initiative or whatever this thing is, it didn't really matter to me who was working on it. I just wanted to return to those characters and those ideas, and I hoped that it would be as interesting as it was before. And fortunately, I have not been disappointed. It's definitely a different kind of take on the Dreaming and those characters. So the series starts off with Dream, or as he's, I guess, commonly known, he's Daniel. But just like Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, this Dream, Daniel, is missing from the Dreaming So interesting parallel there. I'm not quite sure if that was a good choice or not, because we haven't seen a whole lot of Daniel as Morpheus, as the master of the dreaming. So I was kind of hoping we'd get to know that character a little bit more, but they've decided to this is by Simon Spurrier and Bilquis Evely on art. So I guess they've decided to explore the other inhabitants of the dreaming more than through Daniel, that's probably a good choice, considering that this is supposed to be, beyond just Morpheus himself. Speaking of that, Lucian. There are two characters I really liked from the original Dreaming, and that is Lucian, the librarian, and Merv Pumpkinhead, and they're both in this. In fact, they are somewhat working at opposing ends of things going on here in this series. And then there's the third of the triumvirate in this series. It's Dora, and she's probably the most interesting character in this, because while she is part of the dreaming, she has, I don't know, there's some ability that she has or some function that she's supposed to be fulfilling that sets her apart from the rest of the inhabitants of the dreaming, including Lucian and Merv. However, the way things are looking up through issue 5, as I said, that I've read, Dora could either be the savior of the dreaming or possibly a sacrificial lamb, or maybe even both. So I'm a bit hesitant to discover what her role will be going forward. Hopefully it's, we'll see more of Dora as we go on with the series. As I said, Merv Pumpkinhead is one of my favorite characters from Sandman and the original Dreaming series. So I don't, like how he's being portrayed in this, because he is at odds with Lucian and set some things in motion that I don't think Merv intended nor really wants. But I'll leave it at that and see where things end up. And finally, I have to wonder if this story is leading eventually to a new dream, a new Morpheus, one that is not Daniel. But we shall see. Next up is House of Whispers. Again, I've read up through issue 5 of that. So this was an interesting addition to the Sandman universe. I like the fact that they're adding a new house, because we had the House of Secrets and the House of Mystery, and now we have the House of Whispers. So I like how they were trying to build on the DC mythology there, the Sandman universe. That was one of the nice things about the original Sandman series, is how Gaiman and the artists took all these disparate pieces of the DC universe and combined a lot of them into what became the Sandman universe. And that included Cain and Abel and their respective houses. So we get this other house, this House of Whispers. It reminds me a lot. This title reminds me a lot of a series from several years ago called, I think, Dominic Laveau, The Voodoo Child, which is a series that explored similar mythology, spiritualism, the voodoo, hoodoo stuff. Boy, I hope I'm getting those terms correct. If I'm not, please correct me. Let me know if I'm mischaracterizing any of this stuff. But like Dominic Laveau, which I only got 3 issues of, I believe, this series simply does not hold my interest. In fact, I dropped it. In fact, I thought about dropping it after the first issue. But I always, because of the way I get my comics, I usually have pre-ordered up to issue 3 of any series, and then I'll decide if I want to get it. But I read the first one, didn't really grab me. It's like, it's okay. But nothing was really. I wasn't really latching on to anything. And then I read issue 2, and I thought, oh well, things are starting to. I'm starting to enjoy it more, especially when they got out of the supernatural characters and tried to tie things in between the House of Whispers and the goings on with those mystical characters and actual people in the DC universe. But then things in the last, issues 3 through 5, they sort of kept with that, but not really. They were more focused on the supernatural characters, and I don't feel any connection to them. So I didn't care for it from that standpoint. Let's go to some superhero stuff. Well, I guess the rest of it is, yeah. Rest of all, what I'm going to talk about are superhero titles. The first of which is Justice League Dark. As I said, the Dark and Odyssey are 2 comics that came out of the No Justice miniseries. Fortunately, the Justice League Dark series is better than anything that came before No Justice and came out of No Justice. So I'm happy to say that I do like this series. It keeps getting better and better. I have read up through issue 7 of this, despite the fact that we had that, was it 1 or maybe 2 issues? I forget now, that crossed over as part of the Witching Hour, which I really wish they had not done that so early on in the series. But they did, and whatever. I read through that issue, but I just I didn't really care about the whole thing. I didn't get all the other issues regarding the Witching Hour crossover, so I kind of just set that one aside. But so I kind of think of it as I've read 6 issues of this series. But one of the interesting things about Justice League Dark for me is that it is I think the best work that I've read of James Tynion IV's. Not a big fan of his writing, but I've been enjoying this. But in large part, it has to do with the characters themselves. And the reason I like this title so much is that they brought in a bunch of the mystical characters of the DC universe. But it's ostensibly led by Wonder Woman. And so you've got, like I said, Wonder Woman, you got Zatanna, Swamp Thing, Detective Chimp, which, I love Detective Chimp. And the more recent story in there really focuses on Detective Chimp. And some other characters come in and out of this, but I think Constantine's in that too. I can't remember everything that I've... Man, the older I get, the more difficult it is to remember all these details about all these books without taking copious notes or have the comics right in front of me, which I do not. But I was really interested in the fact that magic is broken, and Wonder Woman forms this team, and they become the Justice League Dark to fix what's broken. And I thought, well, that's really interesting, because Wonder Woman has this magical backstory to her, so that makes total sense. And I wanted to see how Wonder Woman would interact with these other characters, because we've seen a lot of these characters together before in the original Justice League Dark and other stories. And I really wanted to see how she would perform as a leader in this group. But it's not quite turning out that way. She mostly reacts to things instead of leading the team. Zatanna, I guess, in more recent issues, has demonstrated more of a leadership role than Wonder Woman. So, while I have no problem with that. It's just the series was kind of billed as this is Wonder Woman's Justice League subgroup, and so I want to see more of that. But I'm not really getting that. But that's really a minor complaint. Like I said, the more recent story that we've gotten really focused on Detective Chimp and his failings, which involved an appearance in a couple issues with or by Blue Devil. And anytime Blue Devil shows up, I'm happy because I really like that character. I mean, granted, he's a much different character than his 1980s book, when he was in the title character of his own book. But still, the idea of a blue devil, I love that character. So there was that. Also, the villains or the antagonists of this, the new villain of this book, the Upside Down Man, is just creepy. Especially was it the last issue or the issue number 6? I can't remember which one. It had Man-Bat. Man-Bat is one of the characters that is part of this series as well, which that's interesting. It's a very different take on Man-Bat than I've seen before. But Man-Bat was taking on more of a role like Cain or Abel from the House of Secrets and House of Mystery. I know I'm switching the houses when I say the names, but you know what I'm saying. He was kind of taking on that host role, the storyteller role in an issue, which I think is probably my favorite to date. And at one point, the Upside Down Man makes an appearance, and it's really creepy the way they did that. But so anyway, I'm really liking this book, and if you haven't tried this out, you should try it out. Next is Justice League Odyssey. I've read up through issue 4. I think I ordered up to issue 5, which is 2 issues too many. I know I'm skipping ahead, but I really wanted to like this book for a couple of reasons. One is some of the characters involved. We had Cyborg, Starfire, so 2 former New Teen Titans characters that I really love. We've got the newer Green Lantern, Jessica Cruz. She's a very interesting character she had a major role in the Justice League book from a couple years ago. And I think they've been trying to find, she had her own series with what's his name? The other Green Lantern of Earth. I'm forgetting his name now. Yeah, it's not coming to me. And then there's also Darkseid, this reincarnated Darkseid. So I think this is the Darkseid that was the baby Darkseid that was reborn. And anyway, so I thought a bunch of those characters, and there's also Asbats, whatever, Azrael, yeah, whatever. I never cared for that character, but so a bunch of different characters I thought might be interesting together, and couple that with I always hesitate on this artist's name, but I pronounce it Stefan Sejic. His art coming onto DC. I think this is his first major work for DC. I enjoy some of the stuff that he, I follow him on Twitter, and I enjoy some of the stuff he posts online. So it was interesting to see him doing the DC Comics characters. But beyond that, I'm not digging the Joshua Williamson words in this. I'm not digging the story. And I know that there were some issues with the book itself. A bunch of, I think the first several issues had to be redone. I don't remember why that was. A change in direction is what I heard, but I don't know if that's really it, or if the work itself was not as good as DC Comics wanted it to be. That's total conjecture on my part. But if that's the case, boy, they still missed the mark in my estimation, because I'm just not digging this whole. These characters were compelled to go to this thing called the Ghost Sector, which Jessica Cruz happened to be monitoring, and that's how she got involved. And turns out that Azrael and Starfire and Cyborg are all gods to various cultures in this Ghost Sector, and somehow Darkseid is manipulating these things, and I don't know. I just didn't find it very interesting. And I quite frankly found Darkseid just kind of boring. And that's not what you want from your antagonist. You don't want a boring antagonist. So yeah, I dropped it. Let's move on to something that I did really enjoy, at least at first. And this is Catwoman. I've read it up through issue 7. really, I got this because of Joelle Jones, because she was writing it and she was also doing art on the first few issues. I know she's going to be coming back in and doing art, so we get different artists for various issues. And I have to say, the other artists are doing a really good job at maintaining the tone, if not the look of the series from the Joelle Jones initial offering. So beyond Joelle Jones's art, which was the main draw for me, quite frankly, I have dropped this series. I think I'm pre-ordered up through issue 9, but after that, I think I'm gonna drop it, or have dropped it. I liked the change of locale. I like Catwoman being in a different place in her life after what happened between her and Batman with Batman issue 50 and the whole wedding thing. Joelle Jones is really good at the grotesque in her characters. She did a couple volumes of her own book called Lady Killers, and if you haven't read that, boy, you really should, because you could kind of see a through line there with some of the things that she's doing here in Catwoman. Not specifically, but in tone and look in some ways. Anyway, with the villain of the piece, the matriarch of where Catwoman is currently located, I like those aspects, but without Joelle Jones doing the art all the time, Catwoman's just not a character that I particularly care for as a solo work. I just never have. I never gotten into her as a solo character. Maybe I just haven't read the right version of Catwoman. And not that this Joelle Jones version isn't the right one. It's just not working for me. So I'm curious, eventually, and I won't find this out because I won't be reading it, but I'm curious what will happen with this title once Catwoman eventually returns to Gotham. And I mean, she has to at some point. She can't. The DC Comics won't let her stray too far from Batman, which is one of the things I liked about this series, is that Jones put her elsewhere. Now, granted, it was because of something that came out of the Batman books, but at least she's not trolling around in Gotham stealing things again. They're not repeating the same old patterns for her, for this character. So I appreciate that. Next up is the controversial Heroes in Crisis. At this point, I've read through issue 4, although I do have issue 5 downstairs in my office waiting to be read. I got this mostly for Tom King because he's writing it, and for what I thought was going to be the focus of this series, which is that's not really what we've gotten, so I'm a little disappointed in that. And a nice happenstance is the Clayman art, because he's just been knocking it out of the park. Beautiful, beautiful work in this. First of all, let me just say, go listen to Peter Rios's breakdown episodes that he's been doing on this series, because what I have to say about this pales very much in comparison to what Peter is talking about on his show, The Daily Rios, for these Heroes in Crisis, for his Heroes in Crisis breakdown episodes. So go listen to those. You get a lot more out of what Peter is saying about this series than you will from what I'm about to say. So the original, what I thought what the original intent of this series was to examine and explore the emotional impact of superheroics on our DC Comics characters or DC Comics superheroes. And that was very appealing to me, especially considering that Tom King has talked about his experience with PTSD and the effects of war on soldiers and others. He explored that a little bit in The Sheriff of Baghdad. He's talked about it in interviews, what he's gone through himself as a former CIA operative. So that stuff really was interesting to me. But I think unfortunately, I think what this series has morphed into and what's taken over the story has been this whole murder mystery and the whole the compromised sanctuary part of the story, which I find, quite frankly, less interesting than the other stuff that I wanted to see more of. So, Tom King has also talked about the fact that this book is, a crisis book, and anytime DC puts crisis in a book title, something is going on with it. There's an importance that's put on this book. What I'm curious about, though, is will this actually be that? Because I'm not seeing it quite yet. There's some interesting things going on involving the DC universe proper, but is it crisis level? I'm not seeing it yet. But like I said, go listen to Peter's breakdown episodes, because he's touching on some things there that squarely put this story into a larger context, into perhaps even a multiversal arena. So, regardless of my misgivings about it, I'm immensely curious what impact this might have to the DC universe as a whole once this is done. Given that this is going on at the same time and may end around the same time as Doomsday Clock, I that's part of the reason why I have to wonder if this really will have a larger impact. It'd be really interesting to find out if it has a greater impact than Doomsday Clock itself, because that definitely is, multiversal in its range, its scope. So anyway, next up is Wonder Woman, and I jumped on with issue 58, and I've read up through 62 because G. Willow Wilson of Ms. Marvel fame came over to DC to do Wonder Woman. So I wanted to see what she had to offer this character, because she's gotten so much acclaim regarding her run on Ms. Marvel. So, Wonder Woman is one of those characters where I keep returning to, and I've got a bunch of different series, a bunch of different volumes, issues of the various volumes of Wonder Woman. So I wanted to see what came out of this, and this is going to become I'm going to become a broken record here, but I'm not digging this so much. It didn't help that Carrie Nord was doing the art on the first few issues. Not a big fan of Nord's art, but I hope I'm saying this right. Harmonico. It's with an X, Harmonico. I don't know why I want to say it with an H. Zermonico. Maybe it's a Z. I don't know. But that art has been pretty good. To me, it's stronger. But regardless of the art, I guess I'm kind of Greek godded out. How many times do we have to have stories involving the Greek gods meddling in on Earth, and Wonder Woman is in the thick of it? We got that. We've gotten that several times recently, and even going back to the 1980s George Perez relaunch of Wonder Woman, where the Greek gods were heavily involved, especially Ares, and Ares is also in this story. It's a different take on Ares. They don't repeat what Perez did with that character back in the 80s, but it's just way too similar. There's some different things about it. Aphrodite is in the latest issues that I read, and that was kind of interesting. But it looks like that she's kind of teaming up with Wonder Woman. But I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. It wasn't enough to keep me on board. Also, I really, ever since Rebirth, when Greg Rucka came back to the book and he brought the focus on, or he brought Steve Trevor back and the focus on his and Wonder Woman's relationship, I just don't care about that character, Steve Trevor. I never really have. I think Wonder Woman, well, Wonder Woman could do better than that guy, I guess. I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Steve Trevor he's boring to me. Boring character. Wonder Woman needs a much more interesting, I'm not going to say boyfriend or even a relationship, just more interesting characters in her life than Steve Trevor. One thing I do particularly like, though, of this run, at least so far, I don't know what's coming after 62, but the Dodsons have been doing great covers for this series. So at least I had that to look at, to enjoy. This next series I've only read up through issue 3. It's one of the newer ones, The Green Lantern, or The Green Lantern by Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp. Now, I talked about this on my Favorites of 2018 episode just recently, and so I apologize if I'm going to repeat myself here, but in the interest of completion, I wanted to include this. I'll start off with, I love Grant Morrison. I think I've mentioned that many times on this podcast. He's one of my favorite writers of all time. And Liam Sharp is someone that whose work I was not very familiar with until he did some work recently. Was it on Batman? I think so. I can't remember what he did now. I know he did that Brave and the Bold series with Wonder Woman and Batman, but I did not read that. So, what I know of Sharp's work, I was not all that impressed. I mean, he was on Wonder Woman. That's what it was. He was on Wonder Woman for a while with Rucka. He's fine. But boy, that first issue of the Green Lantern was spectacular. And I think that had in large part to do with the colors of it. And the colors were done by Steve Oliff. So yeah, it was just a beautiful issue, really. Back to Morrison on this, when I was reading stuff about this new series coming out, first of all, they announced Morrison on Green Lantern. I'm like, yeah, duh. Green Lantern's one of my favorite DC characters. Morrison's one of my favorite writers. He did an awesome job on Batman. His other work has just been, for the most part, spectacular. The only other thing that I really haven't enjoyed of his recently has been his 18 Days book. I didn't stick with that very long. And then I get to the Green Lantern and I'm going, now that I've read it, granted, I've only read 3 issues, so it might be too soon for me to really say, but not digging this space cop thing. So I even had misgivings about it when they, like I said, they announced the book. Morrison's on. I'm like, yes, I'm getting it. And then I was reading interviews with Morrison. He's like, I'm going to play up the space cop angle. And I thought, I don't know that that's the best take on this character. But whatever, it's Morrison. He's going to be playing around with stuff and playing around with the history of the character and his place in the DC universe. So, I have that. But what he's doing in these first 3 issues, though, is that he's playing up the space cop angle. And to the point of he's playing bad cop. Hal Jordan is playing bad cop to, I think this is what's going on. He's playing bad cop to ingratiate himself with a bunch of, bad guys. I've just seen that plot, that story beat in so many cop shows and movies. I'm not seeing anything new. I mean, other than the trappings of that story within the Green Lantern mythos. That's not enough for me, which is unfortunate. The other there are things that Morrison's throwing in that I like, the different spectrum that he's playing with or introducing anyway so far. I think the issue 3 had, quote unquote, God buying Earth. That was interesting, but just a bunch of different things different ideas that Morrison's playing around with that don't seem to have any, connection. And that's not fair to say because I don't know. It's only 3 issues in, so maybe I'm just being too critical too soon. I don't know. How are you liking Green Lantern? Oh, sorry. The Green Lantern. I hope it picks up. Otherwise, I might be dropping this soon as well. But one green DC character that I won't be dropping anytime soon is Martian Manhunter. This is that 12-issue series. This is by Steve Orlando and Riley Rosmo. I've only read up to issue 2 so far. I have issue 3, but I haven't read it. But I will say that Martian Manhunter has long been one of my favorite DC characters, like Green Lantern. But so you take that character, and I've gotten a lot of his. Have I got a lot? Maybe I have a few miniseries over the years involving the Martian Manhunter. And so couple that with Riley Rosmo on art as the artist. I mean, that was an instant buy to me. Rosmo's been a favorite of mine since I bought his series Drumheller from several years ago. He also did work on The Green Wake that I read shortly after Drumheller, which was a delightful surprise as well artistically. So, like I said, I've only read 2 issues. They're really exploring the aspect of Martian Manhunter as a police officer on Earth. He's a Martian posing as a cop on Earth. Interesting. Both these green themed heroes are playing at the cop angles. Just realized that. So there's that. There's not enough going on here yet, really, to really say too much more about it. Although, just generally speaking, I'm enjoying it, mostly for the Rosmo art. But I want to say too, I appreciate how DC is taking some chances with these 12-issue series. Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerrard's just recently wrapped up. We have this. We have Freedom Fighters, which I will get to in a minute. So I like I said, I appreciate that they're wanting to tell these longer, finite series stories, and I really encourage DC to do more of that, especially with their lower tier characters. And while I'm at it, since we're talking about 12-issue series, let's talk about Freedom Fighters. Again, I've only read up to issue 2. I'm not sure why I got this series. It's written by Robert Venditti, who is, he's fast becoming, or has become, one of my favorite comic book writers. He, recently ended a run on Green Lantern, which I really, really liked. So maybe it was because of that. The Freedom Fighters have never really been a set of characters that I particularly cared for. I like it when they show up, like in Justice League books or other stories, but as headlining characters, I don't know that I really care that much about them. So I'm not sure why I got this, other than maybe because I was at, when they announced this, I was in a mood where I wanted to see some superheroes kick some Nazi ass. That's always nice to see. And I guess I was curious how political the book might get, considering the time in which it's being published. But so far, unfortunately, it's been a pretty run-of-the-mill superheroes take down the totalitarian regime story that I've read many times involving these characters. I mean, that's the entire premise of the Freedom Fighters, is that they're fighting to defeat the Nazis who took over in that parallel world in the multiverse. And these characters are different versions of the Freedom Fighters that we know of. So they're the characters in name, but I much like my complaint about the House of Whispers characters, because nothing was tying me to them. It's similar to that because these characters they're like I said, they're in name only. They're new people inhabiting those names and those abilities, and I have nothing to grasp onto other than they're fighting against Nazis. That's it. I'm not getting enough characterization, is what I'm trying to say with these characters. Hopefully that'll pick up. Because it is a 12-issue miniseries. I'm at least going to get the first 6. We'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that it gets better so that I end up getting the full 12 issues. But, it's no V for Vendetta. That's the other kind of fighting against a totalitarian system that I can think of that was really good. So anyway, I'm curious if you're reading this so far, what you think of that. And then finally, I'll end with Detective Comics. Obviously, this is not a new book, but I stepped away from Detective Comics for a while, and now I'm back with issues 994, and I've read up through issue 996. And I jumped back on for two reasons. One, we're nearing issue 1000, and I wanted to see what led up to issue 1000. And primarily, I came back on because Peter Tomasi is writing the book. Doug Monk is on art. This has been, and I talked about this a little bit on that Favorites of 2018 episode as well, so forgive me again for potentially repeating myself. Well, not potentially, I will be repeating myself, but I really like this story so far. I've only read 3 issues of it, and it's just been just like a shot out of the gate already. Very strong story. This is what you get when you got 2 creators that are, at the top of their game. I like how this story is really focusing and playing on the elements of Bruce Wayne's the greatest tragedy in Bruce Wayne's life. The murder of his parents, and how aspects of that are coming back to haunt him, and have a detrimental effect on the people that he loves. Alfred and Leslie Tompkins in particular. And spoilers, if you haven't read this yet, cover your ears. But totally unexpected that they would kill off Leslie Tompkins. That's one character like Alfred that I thought that they wouldn't touch. She has too much of an importance to Bruce Wayne, but that's exactly why this works. Why Tomasi and Monk taking that chance and doing what they did. It's got to be a huge gut punch to Bruce. What happened there, and I can't wait to find out who's behind this and why and how they're pulling it off and how that all leads up to issue 1000, or is issue 1000 going to be like Action Comics 1000, which is a bunch of short stories celebrating the character over the last 80 some years. So I don't know, maybe the resolution of the story will be issue 999. So I don't care what the issue is. It's a great story, and I'm enjoying it a lot. In fact, I would say this is probably one of the best Batman stories I've read outside of Tom King's run that I've read in years. I will also include in that, best Batman stories, the Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason run on Batman and Robin. That's the second volume of Batman and Robin. That was still one of my very favorite comic series of all time. So this makes sense with Peter Tomasi on Detective Comics right now, working with Doug Monk. So really, really enjoy it. Really strong stuff. And so that's probably a good way to end the episode, end on a strong note, as they say. So there you go. That's what I've been reading. These are the new comics that I have been reading coming out of DC Comics in the last several months. And so, like I said, I'm very curious, what you think of these particular titles, and also what are you reading that's newish, or totally new for that matter, from DC Comics. I'd be curious to know what are things that I'm not reading that I should be reading. So if you'd like to give me your feedback about any of that stuff, please do so. You can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. Leave comments at the blog as well, longboxreview.com, or, also just chat with me on Twitter at longboxreview. And don't forget, go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review the show. And I would very much appreciate that. And with that, go read some DC Comics. Talk to you later. Bye.